Yes, good day. My name is Dan Davidson, and I represent the Illinois Soybean Association. And I want to welcome you to this webinar today titled Soybean Profitability Under Low Commodity Prices. And on behalf of the Illinois Soybean Association, the Soybean Checkoff, and the ILSO Advisor Soybean Management website, I want to thank you for participating in this webinar today. Our speaker today is Dr. Gary Schnitkey, Professor of Farm Management at the University of Illinois. He's very well known in Illinois for his work on research work and publications on farm management and risk management. You often times will see many of his publications on Farm Doc and on various topics related to crop profitability, risk management, even things on double cropping soybeans and continuous soybeans, just a host of good articles on crop production. Today, just a few things about the logistics. If you register for the webinar and your CCA, you would have put in your CCA number. And after this event is over, and if you stayed on for the duration, your name and CCA number will be submitted to the CCA program, and that will be recorded on your records as attending, and you will get one CEU in crop management. If you're listening to the recording of this webinar, and this webinar will be posted online on the ILSO Advisor, if you listen to the recording, you can still go into your CCA account at the American Society of Agronomy, and you can self-apply for one CEU in this program. So it won't be granted to you immediately. You'll have to self-apply for one credit. As you go through as Dr. Schnitkey makes his presentation, you'll see over on the panel to your right, you can post questions. We encourage you to post questions related to soybean production, soybean profitability, risk management, managing costs and inputs. Please post any questions, and at the end of Gary's presentation, we'll post those questions to Gary, and he will answer them. And we want to probably be done about 11 a.m. this morning, so we'll keep on time. Again, on behalf of the Soybean Association and the ILSO Advisor, and thank you for participating, and Dr. Schnitkey, thank you for presenting today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Dan, and thank you for being with us this morning on this webinar. Or if you're listening on the recording, thanks for being here at any time, I guess. So, as Dan mentioned, our topic today is soybean profitability under low commodity prices, and obviously we're under low commodity prices right now. And I want to cover three topics today. The first is soybean versus corn profitability over time. Here, one of the messages that we're going to look at is how corn versus soybean, their relative profitability has varied over time. And right now, if you're looking at budgets and actual results for the past couple years, we've seen soybeans more profitable than corn. That has differed from the results in 2009, 10, and 11. So the current price environment favors relatively soybeans versus corn. We're then going to talk about a study that's ongoing here, and I'm just going to show you some quick results that compares high versus lower profitability soybean farms. And then finally, we're going to end with a discussion of the current environment. And here we're going to talk about August. And if in August we're still looking at relatively low commodity prices, what we really do need to be thinking about then. As we're going through this, and as all of you know, and in particular the farmers know, it is a difficult economic environment. And given the prices that we're looking at right now, we will be often talking about lower losses rather than higher profits. So there aren't any magic bullets here where we're going to change the economics or we're going to magically get a lot of returns here, given the $9 to $9.50 corn or soybean price right now. It is at those price levels we're going to face low returns, negative returns, and we're going to be dealing with that for a little while the way it looks. All right, I'm going to turn first to my first topic, soybean versus corn profitability over time. Just to put this in context, here is what we're looking at as far as acres projected and actual for Illinois. So the blue line is corn, orange line is soybeans, and the gray line there towards the lower end is wheat. And a couple weeks ago, prospective plantings were released, and overall we were looking at more corn acres in the U.S. and soybean acres were down a bit. Within that report, there were projections for Illinois, and Illinois we're projecting, or USDA is projecting 12.1 million acres of corn, which is up from 11.7 last year. Soybeans, 10 million acres of soybeans, which is up from 9.8 million acres last year. And wheat, 560,000 acres versus 540 in 2015. Overall, in Illinois, we're projecting all acreages to be up. And actually, if you look at the total of those three crops, 22.6 million acres, that would be the highest number of those three crops planted since 2004. So overall, the projections would be for Illinois to have a higher number of acres planted in those three crops. We did not see a decrease in soybean or corn acres. Last year, there was a lower number of acres planted to those three crops, probably due to the wet weather. But in any case, what USDA is projecting is up a little bit on all those acres, and the relative share of corn and soybeans is not changing much. We've seen the widening of the corn acres, particularly in 2006 through 2012. That came back a bit in 2013, 14, and 15, but still in Illinois, we're projecting more corn acres than soybeans, which differs from what we had back in the 2001 through 4 period. So right now, looking at this coming year, we're projecting more acres in both crops, with corn being up more than soybeans. We're going to put that in context now of what we're looking at as far as budgets. And I'm going to pull for right now from 2 publications, and this is just doing the budgeting or projections for 2016, 2 publications that you can get at. They are in the management section of FarmDoc. We have revenue and cost for corn, soybeans, wheat, and double crop. We keep those numbers from right now from 2009 through 2014 in a publication. Actually, if you request them, we can go back to 2000 pretty easily. And also, we're going to be looking at our crop budgets and our projections for 2016. All of the data in that publication, particularly the historical results, come from FBFM Farms. So we use FBFM as a means for calculating those revenues and cost. And I'm going to be reporting for regions of northern, central, and southern Illinois. Those numbers that we present in these publications are averages for northern Illinois, central Illinois, and southern Illinois. But behind those is the data from FBFM, and FBFM is a financial record-keeping accounting service in this state. It has over 60 field staff, 6,500 acres, or 6,500 farms enrolled, and there's about 25% of the Illinois acres are enrolled in this service. And so that is the basis for our historical numbers, and any sort of historical number that I present for Illinois is going to be coming from that FBFM source. And it's a good service, and it's probably more important now than ever as we're looking at lower commodity prices and lower financial returns. If you look at those publications, again, you'll see 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15 is still preliminary, but we'll be taking that off soon. In 2016 projected, this is for northern Illinois, and I just want to make a couple points here so that you will understand what our projections look like. This is for Northern Illinois. For Northern Illinois, we're going to use a projection of yield of 60 bushels per acre, which is just a trend line projection moving forward. Right now, when we prepared these budgets, we're using an $8.90 soybean price. That is now a little bit low, so you could be forward contracting likely in the $9 or over $9. And actually, if you look at what has happened to prices since we've put these budgets out, soybean prices have increased, corn prices have decreased, which would cause soybeans again to increase relative to corn. Again, we do these regions for northern central high, which is higher productivity land in central Illinois, central low, and southern Illinois. This is our revenue portion. Again, we have crop revenue, revenue from ARC, and also crop insurance proceeds, which we're not projecting any for 2016 because we're using trend yields and near average prices. The costs that we put in here are direct cost, fertilizer, pesticide, seed, drying, storage, crop insurance. We do those again from 2009 through 2016. Power cost, which is all the machinery related cost, overhead cost, and we come up with total non-land cost. And then the number that I'm going to be particularly looking at is operator and land return, which is gross revenue minus non-land cost. That is the number that is split between the farmer and landowner. So if we have a cash rent situation, and we're projecting here $207 of operator and land return for soybeans, that's left to split between the farmer and landowner. So if we're paying $250 cash rent, we have a $207 operator and land return. The landlord owner would get $250, and the farmer would have a $43 loss. So that's the amount that's left to split. So that's the number that we're going to always be looking at. Again, given our environment here, one of the things that we've noticed over time is the increase in these costs, non-land cost, hitting a high about $379 in 2015. Some relief in 2016, but we're not projecting those costs coming down the line. So that's what I've shown here is those over time for corn and soybean, soybean revenue and cost. I'm now going to take this operator and land return for both corn and soybeans and show what that has done over time. This is for central Illinois high productivity lands. And here you can see here the blue bar is corn, red bar is soybeans, and then we've just the green line is what average cash rents are, and this will be for central Illinois high productivity farmland. A couple points about this graph. If you go back to 2000 to 2006, corn and soybeans, typically corn was more profitable than soybeans, but differences weren't that large. We saw operator and land returns increase in 2006 because of higher prices. And we saw, particularly in 2011, 2012, and 2013, 2011 and 2012, the differences between corn returns and soybean returns to be larger, with it favoring corn. Since 2013, 14, and 15, if you're looking at projections for actual results for 2013, 14, and 15, what we saw was soybeans being more profitable than corn in those 3 years. And 2016 for this region, we're projecting corn to be a bit profitable than soybeans. Look at this a different way, and now I'm just going to take operator and land return for corn, subtract it from soybeans. Here's what you get. Again, if you're looking at this graph, it's corn return minus soybean return. If it's above zero, corn was more profitable than soybeans. If it was below, if that's a negative number, soybeans was more profitable than corn. Again, you can see here from 2000 to 2008, corn was more profitable than soybeans. 2009, soybeans was more profitable, and that largely resulted because of high anhydrous ammonia cost and high drying cost during that year. 2010, 2011, and 2012 favored corn, and then 2013, 14, 15 favored soybeans. And what has happened in 2013, 14, and 15, where we're looking at soybeans being more profitable than corn, is two things. We saw costs go up, and they went up more for corn than for soybeans, and obviously prices came down. And lower relative prices favors soybeans versus corn. So if we're looking at $8 to $9 soybeans and below $4 corn, soybeans is going to be oftentimes more profitable than corn. So it's the price environment along with those increases in costs that have caused soybeans to be more profitable than corn in recent years. That is not restricted to, this happens to be Central Illinois high productivity land, and again we do this for 4 regions of the state. Here it is, do the same thing for 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and now the blue bar is for Northern Illinois, red is Central High, Central Low, and then Southern Illinois. And as you can see, in all regions for 2013, 14, and 15, soybeans is more profitable than corn. And for 2016, when we made those projections, we were projecting soybeans to be more profitable than corn in Northern and Southern Illinois, and in Central Illinois, it was basically the same, a little bit, or a bit favoring corn. And those projections in 2016 were based on 890 soybeans and 370 corn. Since we've released those projections, corn prices have softened, soybean prices have strengthened, so we would expect right now, if you were doing a budget, soybeans to look more profitable than corn. Just want to focus a bit here. So we see this across all regions of Illinois. This happens to be Southern Illinois, and I want to make a particular note of Southern Illinois because of the addition of wheat. Wheat, double crop soybeans. You can see the green bars here are wheat, double crop soybeans, and again, if you're looking at Southern Illinois, 2011, 2012, corn was more profitable than soybeans or wheat double crop. 2013, 2014, and 2015, soybeans, wheat double crop soybeans were more profitable, and we're projecting corn and soybeans to be more profitable than wheat double crop in 2016. If you're looking at Southern Illinois, wheat, you need double crop soybeans for wheat to compete with either soybeans or corn. And just to give you a feel, those relationships have changed a bit over time. So in 2006 to 2012, again, those period where we had relatively or high corn, high soybean prices, cost rising, but probably is not or hadn't reached their high points yet. Corn was more profitable than wheat double crop, and 2013 and 2014 in that region of the state, we saw it switched, soybeans, wheat double crops competing and being more profitable than corn. Again, the price environment since 2013, and until we see something change about it, you're looking at a price environment now over much of the state that would cause soybeans to be competitive and probably more profitable than corn, which raises the questions: why are people buying more corn? And we figure that out. That'll be a question for an economist, I guess. But from a relative profitability standpoint, right now soybeans is competing with corn across the state and has done so since 2013. The second topic, so we're now soybeans, and we've seen shifts in soybean profitability over time. Soybeans were below corn 2012, 2010, 2011, 2012, and it's switched since 2013. Right now, I want to show since we're talking about profitability, we do have a project going on with the Illinois Soybean Association to identify strategies of highly profitable soybean farms. Our objective of this project is to identify difference in profits between high profits and average soybean farms, and then identify the business strategies of those high profit soybean farms, and then obviously transfer those results to farmers. This is a project that we're working on right now, but I thought it would be good to show you some of our preliminary results, and that is where what we've done here is using FBFM data, we've divided farms into groups. And what we're doing is we've divided the states into regions, and I'm just going to show you one region today, and show characteristics for different profitability groups. And what I'm going to show today is yields, prices, and costs for 3 different profitability groups. A low profitability group, which is we're just taking farms and dividing those out into low, mid, high profits, and we're doing that on a per acre basis, and we're doing it for operator and land returns. So we're taking and calculating operator and land returns, we're aggregating it across all the crops, so we're finding an average of those, and we're dividing farms into 3 groups: low return, lower returns, mid returns, and then high returns. The results that I'm going to show now are average for 6 years. So we took farms, averaged their results from 2009, and I made a mistake here. This is up to 2014. I apologize for that. And again, these are Illinois FBFM farms. The sort that I'm going to be showing to you is for farms with high productivity soils and happen to be in the central part of the state. We're also going, so we have 6 years of data here. We've had, and these farms are predominantly grain farms. So we took farms, and if they had a large amount of livestock, we took them out of the sample for these comparisons, not because the livestock farms can't be profitable, but we just wanted to look at the grain enterprise and see what caused profitability differences for that grain enterprise. We also restricted them so that they had very little custom work. So the reason why we did that, and this, by the way, eliminates a lot of farms, is because they're using their machinery base to do custom work, and we wanted to look at the machinery-related costs relative to just farming the acres that we own. So this happens to be for high productivity farmland in the central part of the state. We have other sorts for lower productivity farms, southern and northern farms. Essentially, they show roughly the same thing, but so I'm just going to show one today. Here is how those farms varied from low profitability, mid profitability to high profitability. And again, we're dividing those by operator and land return. So over the period from that 6-year period, those farms, the low profitability group had $267 operator and land return, and that's what we're sorting on, or sorting them into groups by $354 and $430. So you can see here that's a pretty wide difference in those years, and even averaging across 6 years of data. We looked at their acres, their average acres over time, 1,500 acres, a bit higher for the high profitability group. And here's the percent of their farm that was in soybeans. So these are predominantly are corn and soybean farms. Low profitability group 42%, mid group 42%, high group 33%. So on average, our high group had lower amounts of soybeans, but I'm going to come back to that. So we're going to take this high group and divide it out further and look at farms that had high amounts of soybeans. Corn price and soybean price received $4.91 for the mid group, a bit higher for the high group. It's not statistically different, but you didn't find it for soybean price, $11.91, $11.83, actually down a bit for the high group. What we don't find is any statistical difference in corn and prices received for those groups, particularly when we average over a 6-year period. If we did this in a 1-year period, that the price received would have a high amount of separating power, I guess, between high and low profitability. But over time, it's really hard for farmers to continually get higher prices relative to other farms. So when we do these 6-year sorts of things, we see prices not playing as big a role as some people might think. We do see the higher profit groups having a bit higher yields. 185 on corn versus 180, 175, 60 on soybeans versus 57 versus 54. So that's so if you're looking at this high profit group, low profit group, what we see is the high profit farms may be a bit larger, but not statistically so. Percent soybeans were lower during those last 6 years, but I'm going to come back to that. No differences in price, and then corn yield and soybean yields a bit higher for our high profit farms. I'm going to go next to looking at their cost, and here, if you're looking at their cost, you'll see fertilizer costs down a bit, and this is actually sort of surprising to me because that high group also had high amounts of corn, and typically you think of high profits groups having, or corn having higher fertilizer costs. Lower pesticide cost, seed cost, roughly the same, maybe a little bit higher for the high profit group. Machinery cost really differ between the low profit and the high profit group. So this is depreciation, repairs related to properly sizing machinery, and this is something that we often see. Power cost and those related to machinery often are lower for the high profit group. And other is miscellaneous, overhead cost, and again, you can see differences there. But we do find that our high profit farms typically have lower cost than our low profit group. So if you put that together with higher yields, our high profit farms do typically get higher yields, and we do try and do a very good job of controlling for differences in land productivity, but they do that without having higher cost, statistically lower cost for those high profit farms. So if you look at that again here, our high profit versus low profit farms, what we find is that farms with higher profits have higher yields, lower cost, and no significant differences in prices. Those results were from 2009 through 2015. We've done this look before, and the one thing that if you look at, for taking a high profit group in 2003 for 2006, for example, that a lot of the things that we would see here are the same as what we saw for this 2009 through 2015 period, except for one. This shows percent acres of corn, and we did this analysis for 2003 through 2006, 2009 through 2015. You can see back in 2003 through 2006, percent acres in soybeans were 47% across all the three groups. So the amount of soybeans that were being grown on those farms didn't differ across the profitability groups, and in 2009 through 2015 they did. Now, go back to that period though, 2009, 10, 11, and remember that that several of those years, 10 and 11, corn was much more profitable than soybeans, and that result has changed in 2013, 14, and 15. So this could change over time. In particular, this as farmers may drift back more to having more soybeans in their rotations. Other thing that really, if you looked at the differences, 2003 through 2006, the differences in cost were much wider in that 2003 through 2006 period than they were in the 2009 through 2015 period. What that may mean, I'm not exactly sure, but it might mean that we bought a lot of farms bought a lot of machinery in those years, and we might have reduced some of the efficiencies associated with the machinery across those profitability groups. I want to really focus here on that 33%, and let me tell you how we're going to do that. What we did was we took our farms, and here you see our operator and land returns. And here's percent acres in corn. Low group was down here, mid group was down here, high group was up here. What we're going to do, and I'm going to show you some results here, is divide our high group into another category. Low soybeans, high soybeans. So if you look at this, there's quite a few farms that had higher percentages of corn, and then you had higher percentages of soybeans down here. What we're going to do is look at the profitability, yield, and price differences between these two groups. So I'm going to take this low 1/3, which you've seen before. We're going to keep that around. Then look at these low soybeans, high soybeans, and both of those groups are in the high 1/3 of farms. Here's what that looks like. Operator and land return, 436 for the low soybeans, 426 for the high soybeans. Acres, and here we see a difference. The low soybean farms were a bit larger than the high soybean farms. What we've seen over is that larger farms have had higher amounts of corn in their rotations. Here's percent soybeans, 23% for the low soybean group, almost a 50-50 corn-soybean rotation on average for these high soybean farms. Prices, $491, $503, $1174, $1186. They aren't statistically different. Corn yields between the low and the high group had a 1 bushel higher yield, 1 bushel lower soybean yield. Actually, these again are not statistically different. They are somewhat what you would expect, but they aren't statistically different. But here is where we saw the bigger differences. Again, the operator and land returns, 564 versus 485. Some of these are expected. You would expect lower fertilizer costs. We had higher pesticide cost for our high soybean farms and lower seed cost for our high soybean farms, and you would expect that because corn typically has higher costs than soybeans. Machinery costs were much lower for our high soybean farms, and other costs were much lower for our high soybean farms to come up with that total. What we see here is that those 50-50 corn soybean rotation farms in our high profit group typically had lower costs, same yields as our higher corn farms in our high 1/3 group. Again, what we are going to do is take these two groups, and it does appear to me that those are two distinct groups. We have 50-50 corn, soybean rotations here, more so in higher percentage of corns, and really delve into what makes those groups have differences. And again, both of those have had roughly the same profitability over that time period. Where those will go in the future is a good question. I suppose right now having low cost is a good thing, particularly given the profit environment that we're in. Based on that work, and you'll see these come out over time, is what we will be doing is we publish these budgets quite often with our average farms here. We're going to do those for our high groups and look at the differences across those farming operations. And again, what we see is dramatically lower power cost and lower overhead cost for our high profit groups, and particularly those that have a higher percent of soybeans in their rotations. Again, what we've done here so far is just looked at the financial side of things. Now we're going to do some surveying work and really try and delve into what causes differences in a profitability and management styles, production styles of those farms, and hopefully do a really good job of identifying what profitable farms do as they obtain those profitable results. All right, so far I've talked about two topics: soybeans versus corn overall aggregate profitability. Right now, again, we're looking at soybeans being projected more profitable than corn. High versus low profitability farms. Again, what we see is high profit farms typically having a bit higher yields, lower cost, not much difference in prices. And then if we divide the high profit farms out based on percent soybeans in those on their farming operations, we see the high percent soybean farms having lower cost. Right now, I want to just focus a bit for our last minutes here on our current environment. And here, just to set this up, this is net incomes on Illinois grain farms. This is averages across the state, going back to 1996, along with projections for 2015. This is per farm. We had very modest low incomes from 2000 to 2002. That period, the early periods, roughly $40,000 per farm average. We had higher prices, and we got some higher incomes in the 2008 through 2012 period. And 2015, we're projecting very low incomes on farms. In fact, if you look at the incomes on 2015, they're lower than what they were from 1998 through 2000. So from a net income standpoint, the 2015 income is low on average across these farms. We would, if you're projecting 2016, put the same thing in for 2015. We could see, particularly if we could see negative average incomes across Illinois grain farms in 2016. Again, it's early. Yields and prices matter, but we're low on prices, and we could see a continuation of that 2015 into 2016. Again, if you're looking at budgets, here's the fundamental problem. I'm showing budgets here. This is 2016 budgets. This is for Central Illinois lower productivity farmland. 50 bushel corn, maybe I could be upping that price right now. But $465 of revenue, $344 of non-line cost. If you're paying $228 of cash rent, we're looking at a minus $107 return. By the way, that farmer return, 88, 107, that's non-land cost, fertilizer, seed, chemicals, drying, storage, machinery-related cost, overhead costs, cash rent. We have to see that number. Farmer return has to be positive, and typically we would like that over time to be in, well, you'd like it as high as possible, but sort of a sustainable level is $40 to $50 per acre, because at those levels we can make debt purchases or debt repayments, do some replacement of machinery, and provide family living. These here are cost, and what we're seeing is that revenue is below cost, and until we get either these costs down or prices up, or perhaps a combination of those two, we are going to be looking at a situation in which we're looking at negative returns, negative reductions in our working capital. Here's a look at our working capital right now. Here's current ratios on Illinois farms enrolled in FBFM. This is current assets divided by current liabilities, and a value of 2 means that we have 2 times current assets divided by current liabilities. During the 2006 through 2012 period, we saw that increase. That was because of good incomes and farmers built financial reserves. 2013, we saw that come down. 2014, we saw that come down. I would look for 2015 to be right down some more. And if we have another year like 2016, we will have roughly the same current ratio as we did back in that 2000 to 2003 period. If you go back to that period, cash was tight. We had not too much latitude to make too many decisions. The fundamental issue here is now that costs exceed revenue, and we need to lower cost. Either that, or we can hope for higher prices. But given the price levels that we're at, and even if they do increase some, we have to see these costs come down. Where I think this is going to be a sort of a flashpoint is probably in August of this year. If we're still looking at low commodity prices at that point in time, and 90 per bushel soybean price, below $4 per bushel is corn price, that would be a signal that we're going to have probably, unless we have really fantastic yields, but if we're looking at cost prices in those areas, we're going to be looking at low incomes, further erosion of our financial position, and we're going to be facing lower cost, or we're going to be facing the need to lower cost, and we're going to see much pressure on lowering cash rents, fertilizer, seed, and pesticide, machinery-related cost. So profitability is we need to be profitable, and we need to be in that high profit group. Even given that, though, we're going to see some pretty large pressures. But if we continue to see per bushel prices in soybeans and corn at the levels there, we're going to need to be looking at cash rents coming down, fertilizer, seed, and pesticide costs coming down. And a lot of those decisions will be forced by lenders looking at working capital and not seeing much of it there. So, right here. Soybeans now are projected more profitable than corn. It's been that way since 2013, likely in 2016. looking at high profit soybean farms, they have lower cost and a bit higher yields. And if we're looking at low commodity prices in August, and I pick August because by that time we have a fairly good idea of what yields are going to be, and you can sort of get a pretty good feel for what prices will be for the year and what expectations are for 2017. If we're still looking at lower prices, then we are going to face continuing and needs to cut costs on 2017 production costs, cash rents, fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, and the like. So, and we will do that. Those things will be hard, but we will do that. But it's going to be some tougher decisions are going to have to be made. So, appreciate your time today, and I wonder if Dan has some questions for me, but I appreciate your time, and Dan?
Okay, Gary, thank you very much for that presentation. I'm just sitting here sort of bewildered about what the guy to do with this kind of prognosis for the next year, right? Let me ask a few questions here. I'm curious about something way in the beginning. You talked about some resurgence in planting more acres of corn, soybeans, and wheat in 2016. Mm-hmm. Where did those acres come from? If there's more acres of each crop being planted, where did they come from?
Yeah, that's the question. So those are USDA estimates. And again, if you look at corn, soybeans, and wheat for Illinois, they would be projecting 22.6 million acres for 2016. That is up by 600,000 acres over 2015 levels. 2015 levels were probably lower because of the wet spring and some delayed no planting and some diversions. But over the past several years, we've 2012, 2013, and 2014, we've averaged 12.4 million in those crops. So there's the USDA is projecting 200,000 more acres in the state, and I'm guessing that spread over a lot of area that probably could come about. But it's pasture and other things. But what's sort of interesting about that is it's high, and typically you think about those acres going down a bit in a low price environment.
So have cash rents, have they backed off from a peak maybe 2 years ago? Or maybe what percent have they backed off from a peak maybe 2 years ago?
All right, so what we've observed in farmland cash rents is they hit a peak in 2013 on average level, and they came down a bit in 2015, and by a bit we mean $9 per acre on average across this entire state. So on average, cash rents came down $9 an acre in 2015. 2016, we still haven't seen what USDA has projected, and FBFM we don't know because we haven't seen actual numbers for 2016, but we're projecting that they're going to come down some, $10 to $12 an acre. Illinois Society projected that rents on professionally managed farmland would be down about, and I'm doing this from memory, about $20 to $30 an acre in 2016. Mm-hmm. But they've come down a bit. But given where we're at price wise, we need to still see much larger cuts in those cash rents. And I know, farmer out in there, it's easier for me to say it, and it's very hard for you to do it. I know that. But you also, looking at the economic situation, we have to see still significant cost cuts unless prices do a significant rebound.
Right. Well, back in one of your earlier slides, you talked about the profitability. And if I recall, in the earlier slides, when you had that trend line, you looked like corn was going to be more profitable than soybeans in 2016, but yet here at the summary, it appears that soybeans are more profitable than corn. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah. All right. Let me go back to that one. I think you're I just let me show you. So here's our projections for 2016. This is Northern Illinois, and we would be projecting soybeans to be more profitable than corn. Central Illinois, we had corn a bit more profitable than soybeans, and in Southern Illinois, soybeans more profitable than corn. Here's what you've got to know about these estimates. We did those about a month ago now. $8.90 corn or $8.90 soybean price, $3.70 corn price. Since that point in time, soybeans prices has increased some, corn has decreased some. Some of that is due to the acreage report and the higher number of acres. So given where prices are at, you would probably be looking at all of those being negative right now. Obviously, we got a lot of water to go, but we have a lot of water to go, but ways to go. But
so based on current circumstances, relative to corn, it puts soybeans in ahead of corn in profitability. You know, we talked about earlier. So.
Yep.
Okay.
And we even looked at that at would a soybeans after soybeans be more profitable than a corn after soybeans, and we were assuming a slight reduction, a 2-bushel reduction in yields on soybeans if you followed soybeans, and no increase in cost, which would mean you are in a situation where you didn't have a lot of pest pressure. So this wouldn't be for a area where we have soybean cyst nematode problems or something like that, or some field like that. At the prices we're looking at, that soybeans following soybeans is a competitive right now with corn following soybeans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I got a couple questions here, Gary. Here's one question that came in: is encouraging growers to lower herbicide costs realistic with the problems growers are facing with weed resistance, along with the fact that they can't really save enough money in most cases by lowering herbicide costs to make a difference? Is that a realistic strategy?
All right. So herbicide cost. If you were projecting forward, unless you had price declines on the herbicides themselves, you would. If I was sitting here today, looking at next several years of herbicide costs, you would be thinking that they're going to go up because of pest resistant sorts of issues.
Right.
So, and this is the problem. If you cut fertilizer, do you cut yields? If you cut herbicides, do you cut yields? And do you cut yields if you go with different hybrids and varieties? Do you cut yields? So, the fact still remains that our high profit farms, actually they didn't have lower herbicide costs, but they do seem to have lower cost and the same yield. So how do they do that? But cutting any one of those costs, and you can't increase profits by cutting those costs if it cuts yields, which is the hard part of this whole process, obviously.
So here, that's a tough one. Weed resistance is a challenge. you can effectively manage it, but it costs an investment in herbicide. You know, herbicide costs don't change much from year to year, but your cost of weed control could increase greatly to stack on all these modes of action you need to control these resistant weeds. That's a tough one because you need to control the weeds, and so you need to invest accordingly to prevent, you know, to control the weeds, so you're going to have a future bigger problem.
Yeah, no, and that is obviously also one of the bigger unknowns going into 2016 growing season is where those pest pressures will pop up. And, you know, if we do have pest pressures, you know, those costs will increase. One of the strategies a couple of our FBFM staff use is always to build in or build a herbicide program and then put in a contingency spray on half the acres, because if it doesn't happen, you're lucky, and if it does, and it just builds in the fact that those contingency situations do happen. So.
As an agronomist, I'm going to comment on that, Gary, if you don't mind. I don't think on herbicide resistance you can't build in herbicide resistance contingency programs that are rescues. It doesn't work. You've got to launch this from the start. You've got to know what weeds you have, what are resistant. You've got to have a program, and you've got to launch it from the start before you even see the problem, because by the time you might see it, it might be too late. The weeds get too big and it's uncontrollable. This is one of those instances where rescues don't work very well anymore.
I don't disagree with that point. And then I'm sitting here as an economist telling you got to lower cost. I mean, and that's where we're at. Any one of these costs are tough to cut, but we are literally at the point where if you take average cost levels, average cash rent, it's higher than the gross revenue, and that's the situation that we're in.
So here's a question: How will today's high machinery costs lower the machinery cost position? Is this a depreciation issue or a finance cost issue?
So most of it, fortunately, very few grain farms have a debt issue, and there's very few farms with large amounts of debt where debt payments are causing a problem. Financing, you know, even if you do have a large amount of debt, the interest rate's pretty low right now. This is an issue where we've purchased a lot of machinery in the 2009, 10, 11 period, which, by the way, made sense. We had income. We had, and farmers used it to buy machinery to update their equipment line and shelter income against taxes. Right now, though, we're at the position where to lower those machinery costs, what you have to do is not buy machinery. And actually, if we're looking at where we think machinery purchases levels were on farms, they probably have to go lower than they were. So working that out through time is just going to require low to no machinery purchases over time. Some people might think about sales of machinery. Unfortunately, machinery prices have taken a tumble here in recent years, so that is not a attractive alternative either.
So, how do the high profit farms get the high profit? Do they have slightly lower input costs due to purchase leverage, sourcing, product selection? Or is that yet to be determined?
That's what we're going to look at. So what we know, just looking at the records, is they have a bit higher yields and lower cost. And now that's what we're going to be doing. That's our next step. We've identified those high profit firms. Now we want to find out what they do. And that's what we're going to be doing this summer. And we will, as we're going through that process, we will share those results.
Okay. So you talk about cutting costs. There are two questions here. Where should farmers focus on cutting their costs? And second, which costs would give them the greatest return on investment?
Yeah, so what we do know, and now I'm going to talk, obviously every farm is a little bit different situation, so I'm going to talk about averages. And no farm is average, so they really need to look at their own situations. But here's what we do know. And again, I'm presuming that we have 4-ish corn, $4 and below corn, and 9-ish soybeans going into next year. We're going to have to see cash rents come down if we want to see profitability, and that's obviously going to be extremely difficult. Machinery purchases will have to be low, and that will begin to drive down machinery depreciation over time. And then we're still going to have to see some reductions in a combination of fertilizer and seed. And my guess is that fertilizer is one area where we're going to have to look hard at and see and do a lot of, particularly on the P and K side, are our soil test levels above where they're at, or what can we do there? But, the areas what we have to look at: cash rents, machinery depreciation, and then the fertilizer, seed, and chemical area.
Okay, there's been the last 3-4 years, with soybean prices have been, soybeans have been profitable more so than corn. Farmers have been investing in soybeans more than they ever did before, putting on foliar applications of this and that, seed treatments and various things. And it seems to have paid off because the yields have ratcheted up for these individuals. So the question I often see is, so these people going after high yields that have been going the extra mile, applying extra products, and these are companies that are advertising products and selling products and promoting this to growers. This extra add-ons people put on after they put the crop in the ground, are these are things very vulnerable to cutting? Because actually, the people could be giving up 5 bushels, right?
Yeah. So, all right. So, again, we're getting into specific sorts of situations, but one thing the add-ons have to. All right. So if we're doing what you have to ask, and again, I know these are tough questions, is that if we're controlling pests, for example, is that really saving us yield? And now if you're spending $20 an acre, you have to get, divided by $8 a bushel, you have to get at least 2 to 3 bushels more to justify that application, and that's more than it was when we had higher soybean prices.
So now, almost in many of these instances, it almost becomes a break-even proposition because of the commodity. You're taking too many bushels to cover the cost.
Yep, we have to get those bushels to cover that cost.
Gary, we're done here. We're actually about 5 minutes over. That's so fine. We had some good tough questions. So one other question here. How do farms enroll in the Farm Business Management Association?
All right.
How does that work?
So FBFM, if you go to the website, FBFM.org, you can find a list of contact numbers there, and if you call the state office, they will set you up with a local field staff in the area. But what the process is that if a farmer wants to enroll in the FBFM, they will a field staff who will work with them throughout time. They'll develop a one-on-one working relationship with the farm. We'll contact that farm. FBFM services, there's at least 3 visits per year. Once coming up January, February, preparation of financial statements and tax returns. There's typically a visit or another visit in July and August where we're setting up, looking at some of the financial issues and making sure financial records are in shape, and one later in the year to do tax planning and then those sorts of things. So those are scheduled. But the contact point is either if you know the local area FBFM person, or go to the website and we contact the state office or a local area and they'll get you in contact.
Okay. Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you very much for taking the time for the presentation and going over some of the cold, hard facts for this year. I don't know if I like it when you said we're back to return to back in the 1998 to 2000 era. That was on one of the slides, right? That's not, not that it's not that hopeful. It's that hopeful. So, anyhow, thank you, Gary, for you taking the time in the presentation today. And I want to thank all the listeners for participating today and taking the time to listen to Dr. Schnitkey's presentation. Again, as I said in the beginning, if you're a CCA and you're registered, your CCA number is recorded, and that will be submitted to the ASA for your credit. If you're listening to the recording online and you want to get a credit, just go to your CCA account, and you can self-apply online for the single credit in crop management. Again, on behalf of the Illinois Soybean Association and also advisor Soybean Management website, thank you, Gary, and thank you all for listening today, and this ends the webinar.